So I recently went through something no homeowner should ever have to say out loud. My farm was raided by people claiming to be the cops. And the reason? An HOA complaint. They said they had authority. But the truth is, the only thing they really had was a front row seat to their own arrest. Let's start from the beginning. Before we dive in, tell me where you're watching from today. It began with a single nail. 6 inches of rusted steel driven straight through a bright red notice, hammered into the wood of my front gate like a warning shot from the paperwork police. It read, Emergency Repossession Notice, HOA Mandate, 14D violation. Which was interesting, considering I don't have an HOA. At least, I didn't used to. I pulled the paper off the gate, and it came with 3 surprises. A list of made-up violations like livestock containment breach and unauthorized fence design, a $4,700 fine, and a deadline, vacate by Friday or face immediate removal. But the best part? It was signed by Karen Whitaker, president of the Greater Simmons Valley HOA. Now, I don't live in Simmons Valley. I live next to Simmons Valley. But apparently Karen decided her HOA borders were expandable, like a land grab, only with clipboards and beige SUVs. At first I thought it was some kind of scam. Until 30 minutes later, a matte black SUV rolled up my driveway. 2 men stepped out, cargo pants, tactical vests. One carried a clipboard. The other had a sidearm and the kind of buzz cut that says, almost made it into the police academy. Clipboard guy took the lead. Sir, we're here to conduct a visual inspection on behalf of the Simmons Valley HOA. I gave him the longest blink of my life. Do you have a warrant? He smirked. Under municipal subcode, emergency protocol authorizes perimeter verification without resident consent. That was a fancy way of saying no. I stepped forward. You're not coming near my barn with that attitude or that vest. The second guy shifted his stance, one hand resting close to his holster, enough to suggest a threat without making one. I looked him straight in the eye. Unless you're actual law enforcement or carrying a warrant, you're trespassing. Clipboard guy just smiled, pulled out his phone and said, We'll be noting your resistance. This will escalate. Oh, I hope so, I said, because I love paperwork. As they left, I spotted something taped inside their windshield, an HOA badge, printed, laminated, crooked. I grabbed my phone and took photos, plates, badges, gear, everything. Then I posted it on the local Simmons community board. New HOA cosplay unit spotted. Looks like Blackwater took over lawn care. Within minutes, the comments exploded. One neighbor wrote, Same guy showed up at my barn last week, said they needed to check the grain bins for health violations. Another said, This isn't compliance. This is intimidation. Then Old Man Duffy chimed in. Told you all years ago, Karen's HOA ain't a neighborhood group. It's a cult. I was still laughing when my phone rang. Karen, her voice was calm, smug, and sharp enough to slice drywall. Mr. Callahan, I'm calling to confirm you received the notice. You mean the one nailed to my gate? Nailed is such a harsh word. We say secured for visibility, and it's not illegal under our new emergency expansion guidelines. Which guidelines? I asked. The ones we voted on last quarter. Funny, I said. I don't recall being invited to that meeting. It was for Simmons Valley residents. I'm not in Simmons Valley. You are now. Click. That night, I noticed orange flags, survey markers lining my north field. I hadn't put them there, and judging by how my goats were chewing on 2 of them, I don't think the HOA approved either. I pulled one up. Coordinates handwritten in Sharpie. They weren't bluffing. They were mapping. The next morning, I drove into town to file a report. Impersonation of law enforcement. The county clerk read it, raised an eyebrow, and said, We've had a few of these. How many is a few? 11, you're number 12. I asked if anything had been done. She shook her head. Most people just pay the fine and hope they go away. Well, I'm not most people. She smiled and handed me a sticky note. You should talk to this guy. I looked down, Sheriff Luke Callahan. My brother. That night I called him. Read the letter. Told him about the fake cops and their high school quality badges. He went quiet for a moment. Then said, You're not the first, I figured. What's different about mine? It's not about fines or fences, he said. It's about control and what they're planning next. What are they planning? I can't talk over the phone. Hold the line. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a random overreach. This was organized, planned, and my land was step one. What Luke didn't say that night was that Karen had pulled this before. Same plan, different victim. 2 weeks after his eviction, his land was donated to the HOA for community use. Except now it's her private retreat. It didn't start with sirens. It started with a megaphone. This is the compliance division of the Simmons Valley HOA. Step outside immediately. That's what I heard at 6:42 a.m. while sipping coffee and watching my goats argue over an empty bucket. I thought I was dreaming, until I saw flashing amber lights on my front gate. Way too dramatic for people who've never met a real badge. I stepped out onto the porch wearing a shirt that said, "Fence me in, I dare you." 4 black trucks idled at the end of my gravel road. No plates, just stencil numbers and taped across the sides. Civic Enforcement, Simmons Valley Compliance Division. 6 people stepped out, khaki uniforms, steel-toe boots, radios, and clipboards. One had a drone controller. Another clutched a laminated folder like it was a badge. And then, right on cue, out stepped Karen, clipboard, sunglasses, a windbreaker that probably cost more than my tractor. "Good morning," she said, smiling like this was a wellness check, not a fake raid. "We're here to begin phase 2 of your compliance review." I took a slow sip of coffee. "Did phase 1 get lost in the mail?" "You received proper notice," she said. "You chose not to respond. We are now authorized to inspect and seize any structure or material in breach of code." "Which code?" "Simmons Valley's Extended Covenant, Article C." "There's no such thing," I said. "Oh, but there is," she smiled. "It was ratified at the last board meeting." "There is no board," I said. "We're here to initiate phase 2 of your compliance review." I took a slow sip of my coffee. "Did phase 1 get lost in the mail?" "You received proper notice," Karen said. "You chose not to respond. We are now authorized to inspect and seize any structure or material in breach of code." "Which code?" I asked. "Simmons Valley's Extended Covenant, Article C." "There's no such thing," I said. "It was ratified at the last board meeting. There is no board. There is now." She turned to her so-called team and gave a nod. "They move like a low-budget military unit, or maybe more like a YouTube tutorial in tactical cosplay." 2 broke off toward the barn. One raised a drone. Another started pacing the fence line like he was conducting recon. That's when I stepped off my porch, one hand in my hoodie pocket, calm and steady. The motion made them freeze like someone hit pause. "Sir," one of them said carefully, "please don't interfere." "Why?" I asked. "You planning to arrest me for walking on my own land?" "We're here under community authority," he said. "No," I said. "You're here playing dress-up in khakis." Karen kept that tight practice smile and took a step forward. "We can do this peacefully," she said, "or we can escalate." "Your choice," I laughed. "You brought 6 weekend warriors and a drone to inspect a barn?" "It's not just the barn," she snapped. "It's the unauthorized fencing, livestock zone violations, and unregistered utility hookups." "Funny," I said, "because the barn's been here for 30 years. The goats were born here, and every utility hookup was county approved. Want to see the paperwork?" "We'll determine that for ourselves," she said. "No, you won't." She waved 2 of them forward. They took 6 steps before I whistled, loud and sharp. The goats bleated in unison, chaos-loving creatures that they are, and sprinted toward the barn. One of the guys jumped back. "What the—" "They don't like strangers," I said. "Especially the kind carrying radios." Karen lifted her phone and started recording. "Just another example of escalating hostility from non-compliant residents," she said. "We're documenting all of this." I smiled at the camera. "Smile harder, Karen. That footage will look great once it's subpoenaed." Before anyone could argue, another vehicle pulled up, a marked sheriff's cruiser. Deputy Ramirez stepped out, calm and confident, the real deal. "Everything all right here?" he asked. Karen turned toward him. "We're in the middle of an HOA enforcement operation." "Please stand down." Ramirez raised an eyebrow. "You're what?" "These residents are in violation of multiple codes. We're executing a lawful inspection," she said quickly. He turned to me. "Did you invite these people?" "Nope. Do you consent to this inspection?" "Absolutely not." "Then they're trespassing," Ramirez said flatly. He turned to Karen. "Ma'am, you and your crew need to leave this property immediately." "And that drone?" It's illegal to fly over private agricultural land without clearance. Karen's jaw twitched. This is outrageous. No, Ramirez said. This is the law. She clenched her teeth and leaned in just close enough for me to hear. I hope your niece enjoys applying for scholarships from an off-grid property with multiple violations. My blood went cold, but I didn't let it show. All I wanted in that moment was for her to be gone. Her little squad backed off in formation, trucks rumbling down the road. But as the last one turned, I noticed one of the younger guys hesitate. He looked at the barn, then at me, and for a split second, his expression cracked. Regret, doubt, maybe even guilt. Then Karen barked something at him, and he looked away. There's always one, I muttered. The recruit with a conscience. 5 minutes later, I walked down to the barn. Ran my hand along the old wood siding. My dad built it with his own hands, reclaimed pine, screws from the mill's scrap heap. He called it the Freedom Box. Said it would stand longer than any rule book. Now it had a drone's lens pointed right at it. That night, Luke showed up at the back fence and with no uniform, no warning, just a nod and a six-pack. He sat on the porch swing like we were kids again. That was textbook Karen, he said. All for show. All smoke. Then why does it feel like it's working? I asked. He cracked open a beer. Because you're not just a target, you're a headline. If she takes you down, the rest fold. She threatened my niece, I said quietly. Then she's scared, Luke said. I looked at him. How many others? 3 counties. Maybe 4, he said. People signing over land to avoid lawsuits they can't afford. All buried in fake legal talk and HOA policy no one ever voted on. She's not smart enough to build this, I said. No, he agreed. But she's ruthless enough to run it. He stood. I'll be in position, but I can't step in unless she crosses a legal line. She already has. Then get proof, he said. Clean, solid proof. And keep your head on straight. I'm wired up 6 different ways, I told him. Good, he said. Because what's coming next, it's not just clipboards and fines. While I was bracing for another knock on the gate, I didn't notice the one already inside. Because someone I trusted was feeding her everything, and her next move nearly burned this place to the ground. It started small. Things easy to brush off at first. Tools moved. A gate left unlatched. Fence wire loose when it should have been tight. One morning, my goat Maggie wandered out onto the road, chewing a survey flag like it owed her money. I laughed it off. Farms are messy. Goats are chaos with hooves, but then the power cut out twice. No storms, no outages reported, just blackouts. And every time, it happened while my barn cameras were uploading footage to the cloud. That got my attention. The final straw came when the pasture fence shorted on a perfectly clear night, right after I'd repaired it. A clean slice across the copper line. No rust, no bite marks. Just a perfect cut, intentional. Someone wasn't breaking in. They were already inside. I checked the system logs, reviewed motion sensors. Every glitch happened during shifts covered by one guy. Darren, tall, quiet, polite. New hire. Came recommended from a neighboring property. Always on time. Never talked much, but lately his questions got strange. Not about livestock, about systems. Where's the backup generator? You got a backup to the backup? Ever think about adding solar redundancy? Sounded helpful. Until I noticed him walking around with his phone at chest height. Screen glowing, camera pointed upward toward the barn loft. Right where I kept the safe. So, I tested him. I staged a decoy shed with a binder labeled Property Transfer Options, Confidential. Filled it with blank paper and left it unlocked. 3 days later, it was gone. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I waited and watched. At exactly 11:17 p.m. on a Thursday, the well cam pinged motion. I pulled up the live feed and there he was. Hoodie up, flashlight in one hand, black messenger bag slung over his shoulder, creeping across my property like it owed him rent. I grabbed what I knew I'd need and stepped into the cold. Caught him near the pump house. Forgot to clock out, I said. He spun around, dropped the flashlight, dropped the bag and ran. I didn't think. I just chased. We tore through the side pasture past the south gate, hoofprints still fresh in the mud. He was fast, but he didn't know this land like I did. He made it halfway to the woods before he tripped on an irrigation pipe and hit the dirt hard. I was on him before he could stand. Let's talk, I said. It's not what it looks like. Then you'd better say something smart in the next 10 seconds. He froze, then snapped instead of begging. You think you're some kind of hero sitting on stolen land, barking orders like you're better than everyone else? Karen told me what this place really is. She said your family rigged the original land deal, that this land was supposed to go back to the community. I stared at him. You mean Karen, the HOA president, told you my dad was a thief? She showed me documents, he said. She also tell you to cut my fence? She said you wouldn't listen, that you were a risk. He tried to stand and I pushed him back down. So what then? You were doing the community a favor? They were going to take it anyway, he said quietly. I just made it faster. He opened the bag. Inside, a burner phone, a tablet, and a hand-drawn map of my property covered in red notes. Trigger points. Fence cam blind spot. Well access unguarded. And one phrase underlined twice. Evacuation trigger, November 4th. I looked at the date. 2 days away, I turned on the tablet. It booted straight to a folder labeled Phase 3, Callahan. Inside were surveillance photos, power usage charts, camera stills from angles I'd never installed, and a PDF titled Priority Report. Subject, Non-Compliant. Acceleration recommended. Luke and I read it later that night. It was full of terms like narrative control slipping, subject resisting de-escalation, and consider civil order filing under expanded HOA clause. At the bottom, authorization K. Whitaker, no more guessing. Karen wasn't reacting. She was orchestrating everything. Then came the forged documents, property transfer forms, a quitclaim deed, my name signed on a line I'd never touched. Filed with the county, stamped, processed, and listed under co-ownership with a company called Mason Ridge Holdings. I went to the loft, opened the safe, and pulled out the real land deed, thick yellowed paper with my father's signature. I laid it beside the forgery. They matched almost perfectly. Same format, same ink, even the same file number. Except one thing. Mine had a real signature. Theirs was scanned, copied, and filed weeks ago. She's trying to sell your land out from under you, Luke said, to a shell company she controls. And the county signed off? At least one official, maybe more. This isn't a mistake, I said. It's fraud. Later that night, I sat in the barn, same bench where my dad used to read the paper. Black coffee in a tin mug with a bent handle. I opened the old folder he left me when he passed, filled with receipts, maps, and one last record. A rejected offer from Karen Whitaker. She'd tried to buy our land 30 years ago and got denied. Now she was using fake documents and crooked officials to finish what she started. She's been coming for this place since before I could drive, I told Luke. He nodded, and now she's got signatures. Not for long, I said, because that forged deed, when it wasn't the end, it was the trigger. The contract she filed didn't just transfer ownership. It granted construction rights, and what she planned to build wouldn't just take my land, or it would erase every trace that I was ever here. I used to think my dad was a little paranoid, not crazy, just prepper adjacent. The man had firewood stacked like he was waiting for the next ice age, and 6 sets of spare keys buried in coffee cans all over the property. Security through confusion, he used to say. If they don't know where the line is, they can't cross it. Turns out he wasn't paranoid. He was right. Turns out he wasn't paranoid. He was right. The day after we uncovered the forged deed, I lifted the old floorboards in the back of the barn and found a steel lockbox labeled in faded red Sharpie, mule dust. That phrase meant nothing to anyone but me. It was our code, a joke from when I was 9 and asked my dad what eminent domain meant. He'd said, "It means the government thinks your land's worth more to them than to you. They call it progress. You call it theft." Inside the box were receipts, maps, permits, carbon copies of letters going back to the 1980s, and one thick spiral notebook titled Land Disputes, Settled and Unsettled. He had documented every complaint, every hearing, every attempt to rezone Simmons Valley, and one name appeared again and again in red ink: Karen Whitaker. I flipped to a section dated February 1991. Inside was a detailed proposal for a luxury subdivision, tennis courts, gated access, a clubhouse with a fitness center. Filed by Karen, back when she was just a junior agent at a development firm. Across it a big red stamp read denied reasons, zoning conflict, environmental overlap, structural impact too high. In my dad's handwriting, he'd circled her name and written, "She'll try again." Not with a company, with paper. and suddenly it all clicked. This wasn't just about power. It was personal. A memory surfaced, one I didn't even realize I'd kept. I was 9, sitting on the porch, legs swinging off the steps. Karen stood at the front gate wearing a blazer, hair pinned up, clipboard in hand like she already owned the county. My dad met her halfway down the driveway. "Mr. Callahan," she said, "I think we got off on the wrong foot." "You don't get a second foot if you use the first one to kick down the door," he told her. She smiled, tight and polite. "This property could be worth triple what it is now. You'd be doing the community a service." He didn't blink. The answer's still no, she didn't argue. Just nodded, turned, and walked away. But her face, that wasn't the look of someone who'd lost. It was the look of someone willing to wait 30 years to win. Back in the barn, Luke and I spread every document across the floor next to the forged deed Darren had stolen. We found zoning overlays that had been altered, easement rights falsely marked abandoned, and county stamps that didn't match the real ones. But the jackpot? A development contract between Mason Ridge Holdings and a silent fund called Emergent Valley Growth Trust. My farm was labeled Phase 1 Redevelopment Opportunity, Zone. Signed by Karen. Co-signed by Zachary Lauren, the county zoning chief, and the same man who told me over coffee 2 weeks ago, "I hope you never sell this place." There's something sacred about land with history. Now he was trying to erase it. Luke muttered under his breath and pulled out his phone. "This isn't just fraud anymore." "Then what is it?" I asked. "Strategic acquisition," he said. "Built on intimidation and forgery." "How far does it go?" "Far enough to keep me up at night." That evening, I dusted off my dad's old cassette player. The tape inside was labeled Town Hall, February 1991. It was scratchy but clear enough. "This proposal benefits everyone," Karen's voice said. "We need housing, infrastructure, progress." "You mean concrete," my dad replied.
"And control. You're holding back the future. I'm protecting the present. You're making this personal. Only because you made it first." Silence.
Then a single clap. The tape cut off. Luke came back holding a manila folder. Leaked HOA meeting notes, not from this year but from last. That's how long this had been in motion. One section read, "Monitor subjects' movements. Begin mail reroute strategy. Secure barn as future equipment site. Spin narrative regarding mental instability if resistance escalates." Below it, a contingency plan. Fake enforcement protocol, complete with badge templates. She had a playbook for everything, and yet, she still panicked, because the moment I printed every file, mailed copies to 3 local papers, and dropped one on her porch with a note that said, "Still not yours," she broke. She posted a video online, standing in front of her HOA banner, hair perfect but voice trembling. "Certain individuals have spread false claims about me in this community. I have never engaged in unlawful activity. This is harassment and misinformation, and I demand it stop." The comments were brutal. "Blink twice if you're lying. Lady, nobody believes you didn't forge something. You look forged. Let me guess. HOA stands for Harass Our Agriculture." The video was gone in 3 hours, but I archived it. Back in the barn, I found one last note from my dad, tucked in the back of the notebook. Circled in red, "They can only take it if they can prove you were never supposed to have it." Beneath that was a map, a property line Karen had crossed, and the man who owned that strip of land wasn't just a neighbor, he was a lawyer. And he'd been waiting for Karen to make one wrong move. That meant the next time she stepped foot past that boundary, she wouldn't just be trespassing, she'd trigger a legal takedown she'd never see coming. It started like a storm before sunrise. Not loud, not sudden. Just pressure, heavy and still. The kind that made the dogs restless. The kind that meant the wind had changed for a reason. And this time I didn't flinch because for once I was ready. And me? I didn't flinch because for once I was ready. The barn was wired. Every inch of the perimeter under surveillance, streaming to an encrypted off-site server, backed up 6 different ways. Luke had his off-duty deputies stationed 2 fields over, watching the live feed with binoculars. And I had something else waiting inside. A little surprise I called Plan B, East Mode. At 9:04 a.m. it began. 5 black SUVs caked in dust roared up the drive. They didn't pull in politely. They invaded, tearing down the lane like they were storming a compound. Karen stepped out first. Beige blazer, dark sunglasses, and the look of someone who still believed she was in charge. Behind her came 8 fake compliance officers, each wearing radio earpieces and holding clipboards like they were weapons. "Mr. Callahan," she said, loud enough for the valley to hear. "You've left us no choice." She lifted a document like it was a royal decree. "Under emergency HOA directive, this property is hereby placed under administrative hold pending full inspection." "Looks official," I said, "but unless it's signed by a judge, it's just decorative garbage." "You're in violation," she snapped. "No," I said. "You're in denial." Her jaw clenched. She nodded to her team. 2 started toward the south gate. Another headed for the barn with a crowbar. One even had a body cam. Like this was a tutorial on how not to get sued into the next century. "Everything you're doing," I called out, "is being recorded. 5 cameras, 2 deputies watching live, a county lawyer reviewing the footage. So please keep going." That made them pause. Karen's jaw tightened again. "We have jurisdiction," she said. "No," I replied, "you have delusions. We're acting on behalf of the community." "Which part?" I asked. "The part suing you or the part filming this train wreck?" That's when she lost patience. "Proceed," she ordered. One of her guys, tall, maybe mid-20s, probably didn't even know what the word easement meant, stepped toward the barn and grabbed the handle. Bad move. Plan B activated. Motion sensors tripped. Floodlights exploded on. Sirens blared. Then a deep voice boomed from hidden speakers across the property. "This is Sheriff Callahan. You are trespassing on private property under investigation. Step away from the building immediately." Karen froze. 2 of her people stumbled back. The man with the crowbar dropped it like it was burning hot. "She said we had clearance," one whispered. "She said we were covered." Karen ignored them. First mistake. The second was not looking behind her. From the rear pasture, Don Wallace approached, broad-shouldered, clean boots, wide-brimmed hat, thick file in hand. "Ms. Whitaker," he said evenly, "you've crossed onto my land. The Simmons Valley zoning tract ends 23 feet west of here. This is private property. And this," he held up the file, "is a cease and desist order. Effective immediately." Karen tried to laugh. "This is a community enforcement action." Don didn't blink. "That's funny, because the community just filed a class action lawsuit against your organization for fraud, harassment, and illegal property seizure." He leaned in. "And the judge who overturned your so-called hold? She lives 2 blocks from me." Karen's face fell, not all at once, but slowly. First her eyes, then her mouth, then silence. "You'll regret this," she whispered. I stepped forward. "Already did. Back in 1991 when we offered you lemonade. That's when the real law arrived. 4 county cruisers, sirens silent, doors opening in perfect sync." Luke stepped out of the lead car, calm as ever, like he'd been waiting for this day. "Everyone hands-free," he said. "Let's keep this clean." Karen didn't move. Luke held up a signed warrant. Fraud, forgery, unlawful impersonation of law enforcement. Multiple civil code violations. "You can't arrest me," she stammered. Luke smiled. "That's adorable." "But yes, I can." They cuffed her. No struggle, no shouting, just the sound of final defeat. Her crew folded fast. One tried to run, made it maybe 10 feet. Another sat down on the gravel and asked, "Can I still qualify as a whistleblower?" Luke nodded. "If you talk fast." By then neighbors had gathered. People who'd been too afraid to speak before started clapping. Someone launched a drone. A teenager shouted, "That's the lady who fined us for putting up Halloween lights." Karen didn't look at anyone, but everyone looked at her. Like the neighborhood monster had finally been caught. Mrs. Delaney rolled up in her golf cart parked at the gate and raised a glass of sweet tea like a victory toast. "Told you," she said. "Woman's an HOA tyrant with a name that should come with a warning label." But even as Karen was led away, something still gnawed at me. While Luke's team was bagging evidence, a deputy called out, "Hey, you need to see this." He was holding a tablet recovered from Karen's SUV, 1 email. No sender, no name, no message. Just a subject line, reassignment. Pilot zone, Midwest Beta. The coordinates weren't mine, they pointed somewhere else. While Karen was going down for everything she'd built, she wasn't the architect. She was just the test run, the pilot program. And those coordinates? They led straight to someone else's land. Someone who hadn't fought back yet. They took Karen away that afternoon. No sunglasses, no clipboard, no fake vest, just handcuffs. The look on her face said everything. She finally realized her script had run out of pages. She didn't cry. But her silence was louder than any meltdown could have been. By sunset, her mugshot was all over the local paper. Channel 9 ran the footage twice. By morning, it had over 80,000 shares online with headlines like, HOA president arrested for fake raid, gets served by the real sheriff, her victim's brother. My face was pixelated. Hers wasn't. That night, the HOA website vanished. The board of directors page? Just a 404 error now. Someone in town, I still don't know who, started printing bumper stickers that read, Karen isn't law. A high school kid made t-shirts with her mugshot and the caption, Violation, arrogance, section 8, paragraph, stupid. Her empire collapsed from the inside. 6 of her officers flipped. 3 county employees got suspended for rubber stamping fake permits. Zachary Lauren resigned, saying he needed to focus on family. Luke told me the state DA had opened a quiet, deep investigation, but that wasn't what kept me awake at night. It was that email, reassignment, Pilot Zone Midwest Beta. No sender. No body text. Just coordinates 2 counties over. That's where I found Grace Harlow, a ranch owner with more grit than patience. She met me at the gate, rake in hand, and a look that said she didn't waste time. If you're here about code enforcement, she started. Not exactly, I told her. I'm here about Karen. I showed her a copy of my forged deed. Her face went pale. She disappeared into her shed and came back with a manila envelope. Inside was a letter on official HOA letterhead, identical to mine. Phase 1 Redevelopment Opportunity Zone. But the signature at the bottom wasn't Karen's. It was a name we'd seen before. Mason Ridge Holdings. Grace was next. Maybe already targeted, maybe already being watched. We shared everything, files, footage, testimonies. Within 2 weeks, Grace filed an injunction with help from the state attorney's office. 3 weeks later, her HOA went completely silent. She sent me a photo of her ranch at sunrise with a short note. Still standing. Still mine. Then came others. 4 more landowners in 3 different states. Different names. Different HOAs. Same threat. Same development group. Same blueprint. This wasn't Karen's plan. It was a playbook, and Karen, she was just running the first chapter. I handed everything over to a contact in the state attorney general's office. They didn't make promises. They just asked for silence. But their message was clear. We're not only investigating this HOA, we're going after the network behind it. The ranch stayed mine. Luke helped me reinforce the boundaries. I rebuilt the barn door, sanded down the porch steps, and upgraded the cameras. Soon the goats were the most dangerous thing on the property again. But I wasn't the same person I was before. Every morning I walked the fence line. Not just to check for damage, but to remind myself that power doesn't always wear a badge. Sometimes it hides behind clipboards, polite smiles, and forged signatures. And if you don't pay attention, it erases you quietly, legally. Some neighbors still waved. Some didn't. But Mrs. Delaney dropped off a jar of pickles and a note that read, Next time, run for mayor, sheriff. Or God, I didn't run. I built, I prepared. I paid attention. A month after Karen's arrest, a black envelope appeared at my gate. No return address. No message. Just a wax seal and a printed card inside. One symbol. A triangle overlaid with a stylized house. Beneath it, a new set of coordinates. I held it for hours. Thought about burning it. Thought about driving there. Instead, I logged the data and locked it away in the same box where my dad used to keep mule dust. Because someday, someone else might need it. And if they do, they won't be starting from scratch. Final reflection. I used to think the law was a wall. Solid, unbreakable. But it's not. It's paper. And paper only lasts until someone decides to strike a match. So if you think Karen was the end of the story, you haven't seen the rest of the map. Because that email, it wasn't a glitch. It was the beginning. And somewhere out there, someone just circled the next zone.